Obviously, great. A little different with the way you feel at the victory. Obviously, an incredible comeback. I think probably the best thing about the game is when you have a kind of a comeback like that. Not that we played well. I think when it all's said and done, when you watch it, which I did not do until Sunday. A lot of people watch them on the planes on the way home, and I have learned as a head coach, since I'm not actually grading it officially every play of every player. I tend not to watch it because there's a lot of things that dwell in my head and the things we could have done a lot better, but to find a way to try to enjoy that. So, but the unique thing about college football and pretty much all of football, like you don't have a whole lot of time to enjoy some of those things, right? You get about 17 hours. By the time you get home, it's time to go to bed, wake up the next morning, and move forward. But the great thing about it is, for us as a particular as a program, that we hadn't finished really kind of a game or been in a situation like that, and I said it afterwards to our players. I think I said it in the media that was the first time I'd seen something different from our team. And I just mean that, it's that will, it's that passion, it's that no panic, which we have done. I thought we have done a pretty decent job, even in the Iowa game, where we didn't panic. We didn't change a demeanor on the sideline when things didn't go well, but we also didn't find a way to finish. And for the first time since, in 9 or 10 months, I saw a difference in that final, not just drive, but that final quarter of a lot of things where I saw a different will, I saw a different passion, I saw a different intensity that I know was in there because we all have it. It's just sometimes hard to find in the midst of, chaos, in the midst of, so many different people, because in football it takes a lot of different ones. So that was probably, to me, more exciting than the win itself, was to see how our guys handled it, how they came back, and to show that will and that passion that I needed to see from us.
Might as well start with the obligatory Ohio State question. You've been through this before. I know it's different. You went to Columbus and played a game when you were at Cincinnati. Did you learn anything from that experience that would be helpful this week?
We didn't do well. We went to Columbus and played when I was at Akron as well. We didn't do well. So I don't know that there's different things you learn from all that. I know for me the most important thing, or the first thing to start off with, is it's not about me. I know we have some guys on our staff, myself included, that have some obvious history there, whether they went to school there or played there. But that's not what it's about. And for me, I don't want to get too much into it, but that'll be something that's always stuck in the back of my head. I've asked, hey, can you do a report or do an interview with a guy from Columbus, or hey, the Big Ten Network? I'm like, no, let's put a player on. Have him do a player. It's about the players. It's about our team. It's about our program. It's about the journey that we're on and the process that we're in, not the specifics of, hey, you went to school there. Hey, you played there. Hey, you got guys on your staff from there. When the ball's kicked off, that'll have absolutely no effect on anything that happens on that field. And so we try to just focus on the things that are going to have the greatest effect on Saturday night.
On the heels of that, I have a question for you about you being a player at Ohio State. It's a two-part question. I just wanted to ask, when you look back at yourself as a player there, what do you think made you successful as a player at Ohio State? And secondly, what do you think you learned about yourself as a player there that you've carried forward with you?
Who said I was successful as a player?
Well,
You're just assuming that there was a lot of really good players around me, and it made me realize that in this sport in particular, that if you don't have great people around you, you're going to struggle. And if you're average and you got really good players around you, find your role, do it to the best of your ability, and you will help not just yourself but your team as well. And I think for me, as a player playing this game, regardless of where you play at, if it comes really easy for you and you're always the best, you learn some things, but I don't think you learn as much. And just like last week, in times of, I'd say chaos or stress, or, when you're in a position where it's not your favor, I would say it's kind of the way I was as a college football player. Maybe not the biggest, the fastest, strongest, but you find ways to battle through struggles. And you really figure out if this is something that you're passionate about. And it's whether it's the game, whether it's the competition, whether it's finding a way to be better than somebody that's more talented than you. So there's a lot of things that we all figure out from playing this game, especially playing this game at a level like this in the Big Ten. I don't know that I would be any different than anybody else that, Jack Bicknell played at Boston College. There's a lot of things I'm sure he learned as a undersized offensive lineman, center, playing that he takes on as, that helps him to be a better coach today. And so a lot of those things, I think, but, there's an expectation. I think when I left there as a player and as a coach, I felt like no matter where I went, the difference was an expectation. And sometimes you make yourself better just because of the expectations that are around you that you have to raise your level. And so 2 years ago, I think we had a motto at Cincinnati, high tides rise all ships, and it was more so of that, trying to get to that mentality of, hey, when you start to have those things, there's some pressure and there's some stress on you, but it makes everything around you better. And so outside of maybe what others learned from their experiences, being at a place that was pretty successful, not being a good player or anything, but being on a program that's successful, I think you learn a lot.
Cool. Luke, you talked about the challenge of guys leading from the sideline, like Tanner Mordecai. TV copy showed him quite a bit, cheering guys on. How do you think he kind of approached that and handled it in the first week here?
I knew he would do a great job of it. I was curious as to what kind of a vocal guy he would be, how he would be for Braden, meaning how much would Braden rely upon him, and he was impressive. I mean, demeanor, body language, all those things, I would have expected nothing different. And it's crazy because we really do have a bunch of those guys. Marty Stry is a guy that's the same way. He plays on special teams, but yet you're out there in the offensive huddle, and who do you hear screaming and hollering in the background? You're out there in the defensive huddle, which he's not probably going on the field, but who do you hear screaming and hollering? And so I think those things are contagious. We had Ches with us this past weekend, which he can't be up there in those positions because he can't protect himself, so we got him back behind the bench. But just his presence on a Friday night, being there on the sidelines, in the locker, I think those are things that kind of remind our guys, especially in the midst of some tough situations, that this is a brotherhood and they're not in it by themselves.
Luke, you mentioned that the game is about the players. There's a bunch of, you weren't here last year, but there's a bunch of players on this team who went to Columbus and left there thinking there was a big gap between the two programs at the time because of the way the game played out. What's the message you might send to these guys this week about what opportunities they have, not only to win a game that you need to win for perhaps a division championship, but also going against one of the best teams in the Big Ten, if not the country?
Closing the gap. I think that we're always looking for those gaps in whatever it is, whether you're an individual, you're a team, you're an offense, you're always trying to close the gaps. If you're the guy at the very top, then you're trying to make sure you don't allow them to close the gaps. And so we can look back at last year, and last year is last year. And like I said, once the ball's kicked off, it'll have not a whole lot of bearing, hopefully, other than things that happen within your mind. But you got to find ways to close the gaps. And, if we don't use what happened last year as a learning lesson, whether we were here or not, then we wouldn't be doing our job, as coaches and as players as well. And so finding ways to continue to close the gaps. There's gaps in everything, right? Every week there's a gap in something, right? Whether they've got better this than you or you've got better that. So I think for anything, you can really measure yourself and find out where you are as an individual, as a program, and as a team. But we've got to continue to close gaps. And the best teams don't always win games, right? The most talented teams don't always win games. I mean, flip on college football every Saturday. It's crazy, how things happen. And, so regardless of what that is, it's about the preparation. It's about figuring out where you got to close some gaps. And then ultimately, can you play loose? Can you play fast? And can you still play aggressive no matter who it is that you're playing against?
Luke, under Ryan Day, Ohio State's typically had a really dynamic offense, but this year they seem to be winning games more so with their defense. I'm just curious what your impressions of this team are so far.
They're a team. I think that they find ways, whatever they have to do to be successful. Again, they've got a young quarterback. They've got a first-year starter. Well, maybe I don't even know. I haven't completely followed them the last 4 or 5 years, but I know that they've had a couple first-round draft picks at quarterback, and obviously that can make things a little bit different. So I'm sure that right now they're playing a little bit more to their strengths, and with a younger quarterback, they probably aren't doing quite as much. Does that mean you're relying upon your defense? Maybe you are. Maybe they are. I think more talented than maybe 4 or 5 years ago, even when we played them. But I think nonetheless, you see the complete team. You see them be able to play together, offense, defense, and special teams, regardless of if they got a first-round draft pick quarterback right now and they're scoring 55 points a game. It's ultimately about winning, and you can see it whether it's you watch the offense or the defense or even the special teams.
Question about Braden. I know it's a small sample size, but you've been around young players, you've been around young quarterbacks. The comeback in the second half against Illinois, his first win as a starting quarterback in college football, what can that do for him, for his development, for his confidence?
All those things are great. I mean, I think that more than anything, experience is critical, right? I mean, your ability to take the experiences that you get and move forward are really important, and maturity shows in that. And I would say that, I don't know if it was 30 snaps in the Iowa game that he had, his ability to move forward and mature from those 30 snaps, I thought really showed on Saturday. Now, was it perfect? No, I didn't say that. But like his ability, whatever happened on last Saturday, to not have the same things happen this past Saturday, I think is where he shows his greatest progression. Iowa being the very first time he was in there truly in college football, other than I think maybe one throw his freshman year. And to see how he took that and moved forward into this past week, it's not just about how he finished the game. Obviously, that builds confidence, and not just in him, because people are different, right? Some people have a true internal confidence, and you never really know whether it's real or it's fake sometimes until guys are actually out there playing. And he showed me that internal confidence is real, but it also, the people around you get better when they have more confidence in you as well. So him to be able to prove that, seeing is believing, I think helps not just him, but the people that are around him as well.
How do you feel about just the state of where your offense is right now at this point in the season? How much can that fourth quarter comeback kind of give y'all confidence going into what's, I imagine, going to be the toughest?
Yeah, I think the other thing about last week is the conditions that were there were different. So when you go into a game and you have to all of a sudden manage some things a bit differently, I think that you got to look at that as, okay, do we handle this the right way? So whether it's building confidence in the offense, then, hey, we can move the ball, we can score when we have to. I think that understanding that we can manage things that we need to manage, I think give all of us, regardless of if it's Braden in there at quarterback or whoever, I think that gives you some confidence of recognizing, especially in this league, that when you move around the country, you're going to face some different things. But I still think, I said it to our guys Sunday after practice, that we've got to find a way to make sure these guys that are what we would say the 2s or the 1Bs step up a little bit more right now. This is the second half. We're going into the second half of the season, and we're not going to be able to play 72 snaps with Braylon Allen at tailback. I mean, he did an unbelievable job, and I think he only missed, maybe he was out for 8 to 10 plays. You can't continue to do that. C.J. Getz played 72 snaps on defense. We can't continue to do that as we continue to move forward in the last second half of the season. And so we've got to have other guys that have to step up. They're not young anymore. They whatever experience they have, they got to prove a lot to all of us, so that on Saturday night or the following Saturday that we can put them, we can use them, and we can continue to grow what we're doing on both sides of the ball.
Luke, you were talking about closing gaps before. I would think one of the ways to do that is eliminate unforced errors as much as possible. There were some the other night, false starts and maybe a couple blown assignments on defense. I guess my question is, how do you teach discipline? I know it's important here, so how do you teach
Discipline is a gift. It's not a point. Discipline is a gift. And so everything that we do within the program has to do with discipline. So it's not something that's just taught. It's something that, over time continues to grow. It's a skill. And so I don't know if we had as many false starts. We didn't have as many critical false starts. I think the third play of the game we had a false start. I don't think we had any other ones, but obviously there's some other mistakes across the board. We dropped a field goal snap that cost us 3 points, or and at least an opportunity to kick the field goal. We had plenty of mistakes, don't get me wrong. We talk about discipline as a core culture of our program, yet I said on Sunday as we recapped the game, the most important thing for the victory last week was about playing disciplined. And I said we did not do that. So we might have corrected in some ways. I thought the offensive line did a better job in those situations where it was 3rd and short, where we know every time guys are going to move on us because we put it on film. We did a better job there, but we didn't play as disciplined. We still had a penalty in the special teams. We dropped the snap and didn't give us a chance to kick a field goal. There's some situations there that we have to do and continue to do a better job. It's like the turnovers. You got to emphasize it. You got to continue to make sure you understand it's a skill, and a skill that we've got to get a lot better at. But there are some areas where I thought we did a better job at that.
Jake, on your right.
I know you can't talk about specific recruits or commits, but with a game like Saturday night, prime time, underneath the lights of Camp Randall Stadium, just what can a game like this against a top 5 team with the atmosphere, what can it do for recruiting, and how do you prepare for the atmosphere like this?
Well, we'll let those guys prepare. We got a group of guys that's where they focus, and we all know. I mean, the game day experience is critical, and in developing not just a relationship, I think, but it, understand guys to understand what it's like when they can be on those campuses, and so this is a great opportunity for us. Obviously, we know that it'll be electric environment and atmosphere and things like that. We got to do our part to make it sustainable, throughout the entire game. But it'll be a big part of what it is that Saturday is. Now, when kickoff goes, that'll have no bearing on it. But I've already met with the recruiting guys, and there's some other things being a later game that we'll spend a lot more time doing, and if we can get guys to campus a little bit earlier. But I think it's a great opportunity for all of us to showcase what it is that we've got here, not just on the football field, but our ability to create an environment and an atmosphere that you'd want to be a part of, whether you're a student or you're going to be a player.
Jesse and Nicole.
Luke, you've been asked before about what you saw in Will Collins when the two of you were at Cincinnati together, but what is he doing right now that's allowing him to be as successful as he is in this offense?
I think, it's simple as saying, I think he's coming a little bit more into his own. We said on Sunday when he was one of the players of the game on offense, that was his first touchdown catch in college. And sometimes you probably don't recognize that. He's had a bunch of targets. He's had a bunch of catches this year. He's a guy that played last year, obviously at Cincinnati, and you don't recognize and realize he hadn't had a touchdown yet. So I think one of the things that I've noticed as much as anything is a little bit better stamina endurance. He doesn't play every snap. We don't want him to play every snap. Him and Skylar roll a lot. But the snaps that he is in there, he's on special teams. You see him down the stretch being able to maintain that level a lot greater. And so he's still a young guy. I think the sky's the limit. He's getting better and better and better. But to me, one of the number one things he's done is his ability to, have endurance to be able to play as well as he can, especially later in the games. And that's what showed. I think that obviously the fourth quarter, the second half in particular, because it's not like we're going to take him off the punt team. It's not like we're going to take him off of some of the special teams, because that's a big part of what we're doing too. And we talked about it. We've got to be able to have the endurance, especially in the second half of the year, that you're at your best in the fourth quarter, whatever that means. Whether Chimere Dike, who played 71 snaps, that's not what I envision. He can do it, but I don't know that we're going to be at our best if that's what we have to continue to do.
Couple more. Colby.
Luke, you mentioned a couple weeks ago the guard rotation that you've kind of found there, and it didn't seem like Trey Weddy got in on Saturday. Was that a injury sickness situation, or what did you kind of see there?
No, it was kind of the situation of the game. That I kind of I said it to Coach before the game started. I said I don't want to switch this right away. I want to see if we can get into a groove. However you're going to start it, let's at least let him get 3 series. And then in the midst of the weather and things like that, I think we kind of stuck with it. The guys felt like they were doing a good job up front. Again, not something that you want to come out of the game and say, okay, these guys played 72 snaps, this guy played none. I don't know that that's where we want to live. So we've got to be able to find that balance and rotation, but not also mess up the chemistry, especially up there in the front, because to me that's the most unique position in all, right? We can roll D linemen all over the place, but it's a little different up front in the midst of a game, especially one that's looks like it's going to be as tight as that one was in the situation.
In the back, go ahead.
Luke, regarding the final play, are you the type of coach who wants to hang on to that momentum and call back to it throughout the week, or are you the type of guy who kind of wants to wipe the slate clean new week, or is there a balance?
I think there's a balance. Momentum is momentum, energy is energy, and when you have it, you got to find a way to bottle it and keep it. And if that means you got to refer to it a little bit more, you refer to it a little bit more. I mean, You know, throw the same play on Thursday at practice when everybody's watching, or Friday when we do our little script, just to have some fun with it and to have guys cheer and remember those feelings. Yeah, I think you're always trying to find ways to hold on to that energy and momentum. They're 18 to 22-year-olds, right? There's a million different distractions, and anything that you got that brings them back to those moments and what it's like to be able to find a way to be successful, I think are really key and critical. Now, will we do it every day? I'm not saying that, but I think that you got to find ways to keep your guys loose, keep them excited about what they're doing, but also don't forget what that feeling is really like.